Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We are delighted that you're here with us today to talk about the PTA Council. We're just waiting for a few more to log in, and we'll be starting shortly. Just a few housekeeping things. Only presenters need to have their videos on so you can relax and sit back on your couch, put your feet up, and turn off your video, and as well as mute your sound, please. And are you able to see my screen, Pat and Joan?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Amani.
Thank you. Okay, this evening we would like to welcome all our PTA leaders who have logged on to join us on this Zoom webinar for New York State PTA Leadership Development. We are thrilled that you can all join us for this presentation, and my name is Amani DeGame. I am the Vice President for Leadership Development. Honored to serve in that role and work with all these amazing leaders in New York State PTA to bring you these webinars. The leadership development team is excited to bring you another webinar this evening on the topic of the PTA Council. We are delighted to welcome two of our seasoned New York State PTA's leaders who are presenting with us this evening. But first, I would like to introduce our leadership development coordinator, Rob Rijos, who will introduce our speakers. Rob?
Good evening. Thank you, Amani. My name is Rob Rijos. I'm the Leadership Development Coordinator. I'd like to introduce our presenters today, Joanne Webnick. She currently serves as New York State PTA's Field Support Coordinator. She also served in many capacities in PTA, including New York State PTA Programs Coordinator, Suffolk Region Director, Region Treasurer, Recording Secretary, and Associate Director. She was Council President and also Treasurer. Joan has represented numerous workshops in both New York State PTA and Suffolk regions and continues to participate in PTA convention, events, and training. Our next presenter is Pat Arsotato. Currently serves as New York's PTA Field Support Coordinator. He has been active in PTA for over 40 years, served in Nassau Region's Director, as Nassau's Region Director, Associate Director, and Chair in numerous committees in the region. She has also served as President on elementary, secondary, and council PTAs, as well as numerous other positions in those levels. She is looking forward to serving as New York State PTA's Bylaws Chair for the upcoming year. Congratulations, and thank you both.
Thank you very much, Rob, for this introduction, and thank you, Joan and Pat. And we are going to pass the floor to you, and just remind our audience that you can use the chat box on the side to put your questions in there, which we will try to cover as much of as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Monty. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Pat. Welcome, everyone. Next slide.
We're on.
Okay. Next slide, Amani.
Are you seeing them move?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, let me share it again. How's that?
No, you have to go back one.
You're not seeing my screen?
I see your screen, but we need slide one.
Yes, yes, I can go back to slide one, but hold on. Okay. Can you see the right one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I had to reshare for some reason. Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. Again, welcome, everyone. So tonight, we're going to talk about the PTA Council, which is a very important part of the change, beginning in national and New York State, your region, and councils. So again, they are a very important part of PTA. Councils are organized and chartered by New York State PTA, and they are chartered in a similar fashion as the same as units. And they are chartered by your region, and there is a process for that. So if you have 3 or more units in your particular area, you can vote to form a council. A successful council will keep in mind what is best for the welfare of children and youth. Council's role is to advise, inform, guide, instruct, and encourage the local leaders and in the local unit. And of course, they can do this through programs, projects, meetings, publications, councils work together to bring all the local and educational partners in their area in order to promote the welfare of children and youth in their communities. So a successful council will keep in mind what is best for all the children and youth in their area. Councils are an arm of the region. So at meetings, council officers should advise units that region PTA and New York State PTA have trainings, workshops, convention, conferences that they should encourage all members to attend, not just officers, not just board members, but all members should be able to attend these events. In some regions, the council president is even part of the region board, and if they are, they should make every effort to represent their area and attend the region monthly meeting. Next slide. So council officers should always offer to support the local leaders and to help them get off in a good start. And because we want them to be successful. However, in internal matters, we advise that council leaders should remember that each PTA is a self-governing organization. The line of responsibility is that unit leaders should contact their region for assistance. Councils may offer advice, but the region should really is responsible to assist the unit if there is internal matters. Unit and council leaders should call the appropriate person on the region when there is a problem. We ask that you do not wait until it becomes a giant problem, because we might be able to offer assistance and guidance before it gets to that point. So please do not ever hesitate to reach out to your region with any concerns or questions. Next slide, Pat.
Good evening, everybody. Council organization. The scope of PTA council work is outlined in the purposes of the National PTA and the New York State PTA mission. The council's main purpose is to promote the welfare of children and youth, as it is in every unit. Councils may create committees to assist in the work of the association. A council provides services to local units and addresses needs which are larger than can be met by a local unit. Through council programs, meetings, and publications, a council can instruct, challenge, and influence its key audiences to action by promoting the welfare of children and youth. Council meetings, councils should be careful not to schedule their meetings to interfere with scheduled PTA unit meetings. They want to be inclusive and reach out. Make sure everybody can attend their meetings. A council president represents the PTAs and also can set an example for local PTA leaders, as they frequently have served in many PTA positions before becoming president of the council. A council engages in community-wide projects and is a valuable channel of communication between parents and families, teachers, school administrators, school boards, students, and the public. And you're going to hear that as a recurring theme throughout our presentation tonight. Next slide. Councils, just like units, local units have bylaws and procedures. The bylaws are hard and fast rules that may be amended only with prior notice to the membership. Procedures are there goes my tongue. Procedures are details of monthly PTA work that may be changed from administration to administration or from meeting to meeting. So it's important to know the difference between the two. Together, the bylaws and procedures provide for the authority and administration of the affairs of the council. The council bylaws list the elected officers of the council, the officers' duties and the terms of office, the number of delegates allowed per unit, the dues each unit is required to pay the council, and the number of meetings. The procedures define the operating details of the council. They cannot conflict with or supersede the bylaws. The bylaws are always the presiding authority. So examples of that, in the bylaws will specify the minimum number of meetings a council should hold each year. In the procedures, it will specify details like when, where, and the time the meetings are held. Another example, the bylaws give the primary responsibilities of the officers and chairman. The procedures give the detailed specifics of the roles of the officers and chairman. Committee and event details can also be found in the procedures. You will find the maximum number of delegates allowed from each unit in the council bylaws, but the unit bylaws will specify the method of selecting the delegates. Next slide.
Okay. So each member of the council has a role and a responsibility. So council presidents encourage all to attend the meeting, especially delegates. Make sure that each unit is represented. In this way, each member has a voice, represent the council, and thereby the member units at conventions, meetings, and other times when it's called upon to do so. When invited to represent the council, sometimes with the media, you may be called upon for that. Always keep the communication open with your unit and school administrators. A council president has the responsibility to try to help everyone work together. So we say that you lead by example. We ask that you be flexible, be objective, and most of all, remain calm. Be prepared to act in very difficult situations. Prepare your executive committee to continue to grow in their leadership abilities. Ensure that all discussions are courteous and no action is adopted without deliberation and affirmative voting. Lead by example. Set a good example. Become familiar with basic Robert's rules so you can run an organized and fair meeting. Make each member feel welcome and help them to understand the purposes of PTA. Spend time helping presidents to learn about their new job. Okay? Council presidents usually are more experienced, and unit leaders are sometimes brand new to PTA, and it's the first time they may have taken on a leadership role. So they will look to you for your guidance. Encourage them again to attend training, okay? Make sure that they put a line in their budget because attending trainings is a legitimate PTA expense. Reach out to your Vision Assistant Director for advice. Delegate the work so that many can share and learn from it. You as a council president do not have to do everything. You want people to take their role seriously. You want them to learn from you and what it means to be a leader. And the main thing is what we always say is say thank you. Thank your leaders, thank those that support you. And definitely recognize others for their efforts as well. Next slide. Oh wait, no, sorry. Oh, there we are. Okay. Okay, council delegates, another important part of the council. They attend council meetings, okay, because again, they represent their units, okay, they give their units a voice. They report to the council the result of unit votes for any requested or required or instructed votes. We advise that the council delegate keep good notes, okay, and they report the activities of the council at their unit meetings. They should be aware of bylaws for both the council and their unit, any PTA procedures that might relate to their position, and also the policies. We want to keep all the lines of communication open between your unit and the council, because we all have the same purpose. Board members. So you may be a chairperson on your council. So again, you represent PTA and the council in the best way possible. So we advise that you lead by example, become familiar with the bylaws and procedures for your council position. Stand by the decisions made by your board, even if you did not vote to support that decision. Once the council votes, it is the decision. And we ask that you have a positive attitude. Most important, and we've stated this before, is to keep the lines of communication open, especially as a priority. All officers, delegates, and board members should be reminded that their comments on social media, both personal and PTA, matter. Words matter. So we ask and we advise that you be very, very careful what you post on social media and what you put in a text, because it is read by everyone. And once it's out there, it's very difficult to take it back. So be very, very careful and use your words carefully. Okay. Next one.
Joan, before we proceed, we're just getting some remarks that the sound is a little muffled. So
Yeah,
try to play with your computer a
Okay.
little bit, bringing it closer or
I turned the sound up, so
facing you more, something or another.
I'll try that. I don't know.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. Go to the next. Okay, that's fine. Okay, is the sound better this way?
Yes,
Okay, sorry about that.
no worry.
Okay. All right, next one. Give me a minute. Okay, bylaws. So council bylaws must be reviewed and updated at least once every 3 years, even if there are no changes. They must be sent to the member units for approval before being submitted using the bylaws wizard program, and that can be found on your member hub site. Once approved, the cover sheet, which is the first page of your bylaws, has to be sent to your region bylaws chair. It must be signed and it must be dated with the date of the membership voted, okay? In the case of the council, it's the date of the final council vote. In addition, member units must be in good standing with their bylaws, membership, and insurance. This means that the council can review the unit bylaws for expiration dates. And if they see that a unit is expired, they should definitely remind the unit to submit them the bylaws to their region bylaws chair. Make sure that dues is being paid by your member units as well, and that the due payments are sent on a timely basis to New York State PTA. There are certain deadlines, and then we ask that you remind your units to adhere to those deadlines. And also remind units that insurance needs to be paid on time. Not only the payment must be submitted, but the proper paperwork as well. We'll remind units to complete what we call the annual officers contact information, and that is done on your member hub site. Certainly any unit that is having difficulty to do that can ask the council if they're familiar with it, but they can also reach out to their region as well for advice on how to upload that. And we ask that it's very important that you give the address and the phone number, which is complete information, because some regions have a number of ways which they send out notices. They might send it by snail mail. They might send it to all officers. They might send it by email. There are a variety of ways. We want to have everyone's contact information so that everyone has the opportunity to receive all the information. And lastly, councils are required to adhere to the purposes and basic policies of New York State PTA, which of course can be found on the state website, nyspta.org. And that.
Okay, next slide, Amani. Thank you. Okay, so for council, there's two types of votes. It's a little more complicated than when you're voting in the local unit. There's uninstructed votes and instructed votes. An uninstructed vote is one vote per voting member of the council as specified in the council bylaws. No member has more than one vote. So if they hold two positions, they only get to vote once. All routine business of council not committing units to manpower or money can be decided by an uninstructed vote. I'm sorry, my mouth is not working tonight. All routine business of council not committing the units to manpower or money can be decided by an uninstructed vote. Keep in mind that delegates vote according to the thinking of the general membership of their units. Council budgets, election of office, council officers, and programs for council meetings are included in this category. An instructed vote requires the general membership of each member unit to vote on the question. Notice having been given according to each unit's bylaws. You have to plan far enough ahead to allow sufficient time for notice to be sent to members. It's not something that can be done on a quick turnaround. So you're going to use the one vote per member unit when a position is to be taken on a district-wide basis by the council. An instructed vote may also be requested or required if the issue is felt to be a sensitive one, something such as school closings, school district budgets. You should use an instructed vote for that. An instructed vote may be requested or required if council bylaws. If council bylaws are being reviewed, revised, or amended, you need an instructed vote. A 2/3 vote of member units is required for bylaws, and you only have one vote per unit, again, an instructed vote. Units must revise their bylaws in accordance with any approved change made in the council bylaws that would affect the unit. Something such as the number of delegates per unit or an increase in the council dues. You also need an instructed vote when units are requested to supply money or manpower for a council project. A majority of units vote in favor of must vote in favor of the project. However, dissenting units are not required to participate. So if you have 6 units in your council, 5 vote yes and 1 votes no, they don't want to participate. They cannot be forced to participate. The vote shall be taken by a unit roll call. So you will call each unit usually in alphabetical order, and there is only one vote per unit on an instructed vote. Only those units who have presented the question to their general membership may vote. If they have not brought that back to their general membership, they cannot vote.
So
And-
Pat, we have a couple of questions for clarification, because you ladies are experts in this and you rumble that pretty quickly. We want to make sure our audience is clear. So the first question was, what's the membership that would then vote? Because there are no members to councils. So people want to be clear.
Right, well, it depends.
Who really votes? Mhm.
Well, again, it depends. It depends on whether it was an instructed vote or an uninstructed vote. If it's an uninstructed vote, it's the voting body of council as specified in the council bylaws.
Mhm.
If it's an instructed vote where they have to go back to their units to get the unit to vote if they want to take a position or all the other things that I mentioned, then they would get the vote of the general membership of their unit. And then they bring that vote back to the council, one vote per unit.
So if it
doesn't-
is the council bylaws, they take that back to the unit and
Yes, the
discuss it
council
as a
bylaws-
unit. Mhm.
council bylaws, if they're being reviewed, revised, or amended, a 2/3 vote of the member units is required, one vote per unit. So that's an instructed vote.
And that was our next question. Is it the president and the delegate? No, it's only one person representing the unit.
One vote per unit on an instructed vote.
Thank you.
And the council should always set a realistic deadline date for all units to report back. Unless it's something that's an emergency that requires a quick turnaround, then in that case, the unit might have to call a special meeting according to its bylaws to get the vote so that they can come back to the instructed vote for the council. But unless it's an emergency, the council should allow enough and be realistic with their deadline.
Hi, Pat, can I do a quick follow-up on that? 2/3 of the units in good standing or 2/3 of total units?
I'm sorry, I missed that question, Rob. I'm sorry.
Is it 2/3 of units of the local units that are in good standing to vote or 2/3 of the total units?
Well, only units that would be in good standing would be able to vote.
Okay, thank you.
But the requirement is 2/3 of your member units.
Mm-hmm.
Although your non-good standing cannot vote, to pass a vote, you need 2/3 of your member units.
Yes. Thank you, Amani.
Sure thing. And there's a follow-up question to either Joan or Pat, whoever is comfortable answering. If the council wants to take a position on something, let's say district related, right? Does it still have to go first to the units and bring back the vote to the council in order for the council to take a position as such?
Well, it really depends on how they're going to word the letter.
And we do have a slide coming up that
Right.
says.
We'll explain that in a
Okay, so we'll get to it.
Yeah,
Sure.
we have a slide coming up about taking.
And a part of the question too is, in that case, does each unit have to consult with its membership? So whenever you're ready for that one. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, and you know what, if we can hold the other questions till the end,
Sure,
this way we can, because sometimes we might answer something
sure.
further ahead. Thank you. Okay, Money, the next slide.
Sometimes the computer doesn't listen. Here it is.
There you go. Okay, so the council nominating committee. When you do bylaws easy, you have two options for how the council nominating committee would be set up. The first is electing the members solely from the voting body of the council. So that would read, there shall be a nominating committee consisting of however many members you decide of the voting body of the council. And then the committee shall be elected by the council at a regular meeting of the council at least 60 days prior to the election meeting. Next slide. The council nominating committee's second option, the council nominating committee must have representation from each member unit. These unit members of the nominating committee are elected by the units, not by the council. Each unit should plan to schedule their vote in enough time to be able to present their nominating committee members at the council's certification. There may also be additional members of the committee who are not council board members if desired. Those members would be elected by the voting body of the council. So in this option, your bylaws would read, there shall be a nominating committee consisting of X members. X members, so say you have 9 members. 8 members would be 1 member elected by each member unit. That would be in the case that you would have 8 units. So if you had 8 units, 1 member elected by each member unit, it would say 8 members, 1 member elected by each member unit. And if you have the option of having non-board members, you would have however many members who should not be members of the executive board. In that case, the members who are elected by their units just get certified by the council. They do not get voted on by the council. Each member unit elects their representative to the nominating committee. And then again, that certification and the election of the additional members is done 60 days before the election meeting. Next slide.
Okay, so this is a slide on taking a position, and this might answer some of those questions. So sometimes councils are called upon to take a position. Okay, so some of those might be on your school budget, any other educational decision that might be going on within your district, even sending a letter to the district or to a local legislator. In reporting these positions taken by the council, it's the way in which it's worded, and that depends on how you took the vote. So you have to be sure to specify which body of council has voted on the matter. So, for example, if you take an instructed vote, the ABC Council of PTAs is in favor of or opposed to, okay, so now you're doing it, the ABC Council of PTAs. So that's your whole council, including all your member units. And that is why we use the instructed vote, and each representative goes back to their own unit and the membership, and then they would take a vote. That representative brings it back to the council and they vote. Okay. If it's an uninstructed vote, it's as supported by or opposed by the voting body of council of ABC Council, that's an uninstructed vote. Okay, so it clearly states that it's just the council, the voting body, that has voted to support. So it doesn't necessarily mean that all the units are voting for it. It means that just that particular group, that particular body is who is voting to send the letter. Only the executive board or exec committee vote in this uninstructed vote. The executive board or the executive committee of the ABC Council is in favor or opposed. Okay, so that would be also an uninstructed vote. Does that clear it up?
It has, for the most part. So we have a question here that says, let's say there's a unit that dissents from voting to support a proposed school budget, but the other units approve the budget. Can the council support it on behalf of its member units? So again, it would have to be 2/3, correct?
Yeah, yes, and it would just have to be the way they took the vote is how it would, the position would be sent out and written.
So I would say if it's only one unit, as the question states, the minimum number of units is 3, so that's 1/3 or less. That means the rest of the units is a majority of 2/3 or more. That means, yes, that council can take that position in
Right.
support of the budget.
Right.
Well,
Thank
for the 2/3 you need for a bylaws, an instructed vote, that's a majority.
So
Except
anything more than half,
2/3, anything more than half, majority.
anything more than 50%.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, dues. So, the council, of course, needs funds for supporting their programs. So we have dues. Dues provides the funds required for the council's regular activities and expenses. If additional funds are beyond the dues stated in the bylaws are required, money may be raised by additional fundraising projects or events. Any fundraising project should be council-wide and certainly not interfere with or duplicate events held by the member unit. A special contribution from member units is also allowed as long as it is approved by the member unit, which is an instructed vote, and no member unit may be compelled to participate in any of extra fundraising events or submit a special contribution. So the dues is also, the amount of the dues is in your bylaws, and that's stated there. The council budget is presented to the executive board or committee for review, and then to the voting body of council for adoption. And again, any expenditure not provided in the adopted budget must be submitted to the voting body of council before that money is spent. The voting body must approve all unbudgeted expenditures by amending the budget, similar to that of that same thing that you do within the unit, and that will cover the expense. Council should budget funds to send delegates to legislative and leadership conferences, and we've spoken about this before. It is a legitimate PTA expense. They should look at regional PTA trainings and workshops and state PTA and national conventions. The council should, of course, encourage all their unit members to do the same. The treasurer's books must be audited annually according to the bylaws, same as in units, okay? A monthly reconciliation is required by PTA insurance, and it should be done by someone who is not a signer on your account. The reconciliation should be a report and should be read into the minutes of the meeting. And just a side note, it's important to have that because should you have a misappropriation of funds, and you do have to go through your insurance, the AIM will ask for that documentation. So it's always best to have that ready. The council must have its own tax exempt meeting. No unit should use the council FEIN, and the council should not use a unit FEIN. You don't share it with outside committees. Don't share it with the school district. It is only for the council to use. And it's very important to protect that number. Okay, Pat's up.
Next slide, Imani, please. Thank you. So relationships. Council is all about relationships and bringing everybody together. So your council's relationships with the local unit. The council is there to provide inspiration, information, and instruction for its PTA units. Wise council leaders will only undertake projects that have the enthusiastic support of the majority of local units. And we always have to remember that councils cannot legislate for local units or take action within a local unit. With the school board, councils should see that a council representative attends school board meetings and reports back to the council. They should also encourage the school board to assign one of its members to attend the council meetings. And also they should seek to have council representation on school planning, advisory boards, and curriculum committees. In relationships with school administrators, the council should always take the superintendent up on any "my door is always open" invitation. Try to meet regularly with the superintendent. That's a valuable connection and relationship, and you want to have a good one. The superintendent should be invited to the council meetings, and the lines of communication between the council and the administration should always remain open. And also encourage the administration to give a report at each council meeting so that it's not just you talking at them, they're sharing information with you. As far as outside organizations, the council may work with other organizations with a similar mission and purpose. Any joint activity should be promoting PTA purposes, support PTA policy, and not be in conflict with state or national PTA positions. Cooperation cannot include fundraising for another organization, helping with membership enrollment for another organization, or contributing funds to finance the work of another organization. And then there's the relationship with the community. The council has a responsibility to unite the forces of home, school, and community. A council should present good programs for the community and keep them apprised of all educational issues. The council should act as a conduit and keep the lines of communication open throughout the school district. And next slide. Thank you, Amani. On this slide, we just have a list of types of programs that the council can offer. The council could be doing study groups. They can run family engagement programs, parent education programs, programs for health and wellness issues, education and testing, standards and testing workshops. They could do a Founders Day celebration. They could do a group installation. Sometimes some councils, instead of having an installation for each individual unit, the council will host an installation and make it a big event, and all the officers of all the different units would be installed in one place. And that kind of brings everybody together too. It depends on your community, but I have seen that done. And next slide.
We'll go to the questions.
So we have a question in the chat box, whether the council can waive dues for a particular unit. And if so, can the unit continue to vote while their dues are waived or forgiven?
John, you want to jump on that one? You want me to jump
No.
on?
I would say that they could, but they would have to have, I would suggest that they have something written in their procedures, or they have a policy. You would have to have a good reason. I mean, what would be the reason that you would want to do that? It could be funds, or I think it's something that you really have to weigh very carefully as to why you would want to not collect dues from one out of maybe say 5 or 6 units.
And I also would say, if it's not in the procedures, you may want to get a consensus of the rest of the units, or even take it back for an instructor, go to the rest of the units.
Right.
I don't think it's something that could just be done randomly.
No.
So you want to have something in your procedures basically as to when you would make that exception, because otherwise units do owe their dues annually and are expected to pay them, right? And if you're going to make an exception, it needs to be founded on some criteria that are applied equally in the future,
Right.
so that you're not accused of, preferring one unit or giving them a preferential treatment over another. So you must have something spelled out, or you want to have something spelled out to protect, your executive from deciding whether maybe it requires a vote of all member units or whether it doesn't. What excruciating circumstances would qualify them to be exempt. So,
And what's important to remember is that is in your bylaws, the dues. So that actually you're waiving your bylaws if you do that.
You have to think very
So
carefully.
that is not something that should be taken lightly or done
Right.
lightly.
And I just want to say that all units should have a budget line for their council dues. And for their insurance. So it should just be something that's part of the unit. They know they have to come up with those funds. And I've actually never ever seen in all the years I've been doing PTA where it needs to be waived from one unit, unless the school closed or something like that. But I've never seen
Occasionally when a unit has been halting their, maybe not completely dismantled, but on some sort of a hold for the year or so, they've requested that of councils, and it becomes a tricky situation because, as you said, Joan, the council has budgeted assuming all those dues are collected, so it creates a deficit. So along that same question, what happens if a unit has not paid their dues? What can a council do if they're not responding to communications, especially now when meetings are not in person and they've attempted to call them or email them to the president and the treasurer? What can a council do to mitigate that?
Well,
I-
go ahead, John.
No, I was just gonna say, I think they should reach out to their region for assistance. To maybe find out what's going on with the unit. The council can certainly reach out to the unit to see what's going on, to speak with the unit leaders. There should be lines of communication, that are open, that they should be able to ask these questions.
Would you recommend reaching out to the building administration to find out if the unit is active and actually having meetings?
It's certainly anything they can do to mitigate and find out what's going on with the unit and the unit leaders and the membership, is certainly a step in the right direction.
Great. We have another question in the chat asking, I know you mentioned this, but if you can expand a little bit on when a unit is not in good standing, can they still vote on the council level?
John,
Um,
do you want me to get that one?
you can get that one, 'cause I don't think it's.
All right,
written
yeah,
in-
usually, again, if a unit's not in good standing, you should, again, reach out to your region to ask for assistance, reach out to your assistant director or associate director, depending on how your region is set up. Whether you have associate directors assigned or assistant directors. And then what you would do is ask them to help you to find out, because they're probably already trying to also work with the unit to get them back in good standing. But if they haven't contributed dues to the council and they're not in good standing, they're also affecting the council's status of being in good standing. When we touched on that, part about what makes a council in good standing, the units all have to be in good standing. So whatever can be done to get them in compliance, and then if they're not in compliance, then there are steps that you would have to take. And as far as that goes, if the person that asked that question wants us to give a response in a little more detail, I will look into that and go into that further. I don't believe they're able to vote, but I want to verify that before I give that as a definitive answer. I don't believe they would be able to.
Send us an email in chat@nyspta.org and we will get you the information in detail. Chat, CHAT@nyspta.org.
We will definitely get back to you because, and I don't know if if you go to our next slide, Amani, our last slide, we did say if you have questions that we don't answer here or that you think of later, New York State PTA Resource Guide, Section 4, Council Guide. I'm going to put it up in front of my face. Here it is. Hopefully everybody knows where to find that. It's on the New York State PTA website. And that answers your questions about so much. And that's where 99 and 44, 100% of this presentation came from.
Right.
And the other thing is to contact your region director for assistance. We can't say that enough. Your region director, assistant director, or associate director, because your region is your first line of help. And so I saw somebody put in the chat, I'm not sure who it was that answered it.
I answered one question regarding units. Should we send this information to units? And I explained that the unit bylaws, each individual unit actually list their parent council that they owe annual dues to. So it's in their individual unit bylaws saying that they are a member of that particular council if they have a council, and
Right,
that
that
owe
would be,
annual dues.
Right.
that's clearly in the bylaws, and the bylaws of the council state what the dues are. And then thank you to Marae, because I do not have the full council bylaws in front of me. She said that the bylaws state they are not allowed to vote if they do not pay dues. And I believed that was the answer, but I wanted to verify that before we gave that as a definitive answer. Thank you, Marae.
And along the struggles of some units right now, we have a question that's very pertinent because some units are dormant or / abandoned was the word used, or inactive during this pandemic. They just did not continue their activity, unfortunately, which is not supposed to be what's happening. As we know how important PTA services and advocacy is during this time more than ever. But if that's the case and the units are have been abandoned because the meetings were not in person and they just basically did not carry on any activities, how does a council handle that?
Well, I would think that they first of all should reach out to their region director, maybe their assistant director, and make them aware that this is happening within the area. And together they could work on a plan to assist those units to come back and to start working again. And hopefully, by this time of the year, they would have been aware of which units needed assistance. So there are things that your region can do and can help you with, and that's probably the first place you should go.
And it's unfortunate because this is a year where the councils and the units really could have provided a lot of information, services, and connection to the families, a lot of family. I mean, we've had so many councils and local units within the state that have done some phenomenal work this year. They've really stepped up. They've reached out to the families. They've found ways to keep the connections. And it's really a shame that we've lost some of them. And the ones that have done it have done a phenomenal job. And I congratulate them for doing it, because this was an opportunity for PTA to really make that connection with the families in the community and the schools. Even though we've all had to adapt to this virtual stuff, and I'm really old, and this is all new to me, and we've all had to adopt and to all this new stuff. But it was a wonderful opportunity for PTAs to really step up and make that connection. And it's unfortunate that some just have not done anything for the whole year, but others have really shown, and kudos to them.
Well, there are very important topics out there now, very important things that PTAs need to be discussing and going over. So it isn't so much about how much money they raise or they do every single program. It's the fact that they're looking into what's going on now with school budgets and state budgets and support of education. So there's a lot to do, even if they're not doing all of their traditional programs that they normally do.
There's been no more important time for PTA to support and inform and keep parents well informed and aware of what's going on than today, for sure. And the role of PTA has only been magnified during this pandemic. And like you said, Pat, some units have done an amazing job at supporting their parents and teachers, and most importantly, the children. So there is another clarification needed on the voting body, because in bylaws, it states that each individual member unit is allowed to vote the delegate and the president. They want to clarify again, is it one vote or two votes per unit?
Again, it depends if it's an instructed vote or an uninstructed vote. If it's an instructed vote, it's one vote per unit. If it's an uninstructed vote, then it's a vote for each member of the voting body. So if you've got, and depending on how your region bylaws read, it may say the president and all the delegates. You've also got chair people may be part of your voting body. Again, it's the voting body of council as specified in your bylaws is for the uninstructed vote. For the instructed vote, it's one vote per unit.
So an example to simplify this, let's say you're voting on your council budget, right? Usually
Mhm.
that's uninstructed, correct? It's your council budget, it's the body of the council that's going to vote on it, correct?
Right.
That usually then allows you those two votes per unit, which is the president
Right.
and the delegate.
It would be more than two votes per unit, because if you're allowed three
Or a
delegates,
president and two delegates.
to
Mhm.
the president, and maybe you have somebody else from your unit that's a chairperson.
Right.
On council. It
As
would
long
be
as each person can only vote once, cannot
Right.
vote twice.
members of the voting body as specified in the bylaws. Whatever, each individual region
Mhm.
will have different people specified as part of the voting
Mhm.
body.
But we
So-
gave an example of an instructed where, for example, are you in support of your district budget or not? This had to go back to the units. The units had to decide. They need to come back with one voice only, one vote.
Right.
So that would be an example of that.
Yep.
I hope that made it clear because it is confusing.
Yep.
So people are referring to our COVID-19 page as well. We encourage everyone to go to nyspta.org and check the COVID-19 page. A lot of resources were posted there that could be shared with your members as well as your leaders. And we continue to update that information regularly during this time. There's always new information being posted. There's information on mental health and some of these panels that we have had on mental health specifically, which has been an important topic. There's a lot of other leadership webinars that we've put together this year with the help of the leaders like Pat and Joan and others on the leadership development team, as well as our region directors have put some amazing webinars for us. So please feel free to go to nyspta.org under the tab leaders. That's where the resource guide is, and that's where all training material is also posted. You'll be able to access the actual videos as well as the PowerPoints, since we received that asked several times in the chat.
And Amani, I'd just like to say, I see many people making comments about this should be written somewhere. Where is this written? And just to stress again, the answers to most of your questions are in the resource guide. Not
And
just
there
on
was
these.
a specific question, is the instructed and uninstructed vote distinction in the resource guide, Pat? That was
Yes,
just the
there
last
is.
question.
It's actually in the council guide, section 4 of the council guide. And I will give you the exact page in 2 seconds.
It's scary how we start memorizing these citations.
It's bad. Let me see. Yes, it's in section 4 of the council guide, page 7. Page 6.
Okay, and if somebody, because I'm in 3 different screens, can put the link to the resource guide. But it's so easy if you go to nyspta.org, go under leaders, and it's right there, the resource guide.
And
to
again,
ease
reach out
easy
to your
access time.
region director if you have a question that wasn't answered.
Absolutely. And we really enjoyed having everyone on the webinar today and appreciate everybody joining us as opposed to doing something else. I have to say my school district had a council. I have served as council president myself. So have many of our region leaders and our state leaders. I can't tell you how important it is to have a council in a school district. It's really the link between all the units and administration and the community, because it speaks with one voice for the whole community. as opposed to individual units. It's also the step, the go-to leadership. Usually council leaders have served on the unit level, have the expertise to troubleshoot and to solve problems. And so they're the go-to for the units. And for units that don't have a council, if you have 3 units or more, please consider having one, and we would be, your region director and your region would be more than happy to help you charter a council. So that's just my shout out for councils. I think they're very uniting and very important for our communities. I'm sure Joan and Pat agree.
Very much so. We strongly encourage areas to have councils. It's a great opportunity to come together.
And on behalf of our participants and the Leadership Development Committee, I would deeply thank Pat Acertato and Joan Wobnick for this very thorough and thoughtful review of the role of the PTA Council in supporting PTA units, as well as fostering strong relationships with their community. There is a recording that's going to be posted again on our website for future use. Please feel free to share it with other PTA leaders in your unit or council, again, under leaders and under training material. And we hope you can join us for our next webinar, which is going to be on May 5th. And the topic is going to be the unit audit and treasury by Patty Frazier, our New York State PTA treasurer. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. And thank you very much, Pat and Joan. And Evan.
You're welcome anytime.
Have a good night.
Night.
Good
Good
night.
night.